In the first shots we see Saeed sitting on the shore, looking at a photograph of a young woman. At one point he notices a cable stretching out of the jungle in the sand. Meanwhile, Jack changes the bandage to Sawyer, who keeps making sarcastic comments. Meanwhile, Kate is very concerned because Saeed has been gone for 2 days. In the jungle, Saeed fell into a trap and found himself suspended upside down from a tree. He hung like that until nightfall. Suddenly something stirred in the trees. Someone released Saeed, but he did not have time to see him because he lost consciousness. In the caves, Jack examines a patient. Some of them get paranoid over nothing. Hugo thinks that people will soon go crazy if they don't have something to occupy them. Saeed came to his senses by the light of the lamp. There were voices all around, a certain woman asking where Alex was. Saeed did not immediately realize that his hands and feet were tied. Then the woman began to torture him with electricity, continuing to ask about Alex. But Saeed has no idea who she is talking about. He recalls serving in the Republican Guard, trying to extract information from a terrorist who attacked his own people. Later, Saeed is told by the commander that he is being promoted and will soon be transferred to intelligence. During the conversation, Saeed sees soldiers leading a young woman. John and Ethan returned from a hunt and found some things, apparently fallen from an airplane. When Walt heard the noise, he asked John to take him with him on the hunt, but Mike woke up and told his son to go to sleep. Hugo found something interesting in the things. Saeed continued to endure the torture. He tried to explain that their plane had crashed and now they were on an island where strange things were happening. Suddenly a woman started speaking in French. Saeed realized that she was the French woman whose signal they had caught. She suddenly knocked Saeed out of the blue. When he regained consciousness, he asked a woman named Russo how she had been able to transmit the signal for 16 years. She replied that the signal was coming from somewhere else, but that Saeed's friends were now controlling it. He still doesn't understand what's going on. Russo asked who the girl in the picture was. Saeed replied that her name was Nadia, and he sank into a memory. The commander instructed him to elicit information from a woman who was a supporter of the rebels. Upon entering the room, Saeed realized he knew her. They had gone to school together. This was not the first time Nadia had been here for questioning, but she had withstood everything. Now Nadia also refused to answer who set off the explosion. In the present, Saeed asked Russo who Alex was. Meanwhile, Walt didn't know what to do, and Hugo had something interesting in mind. Russo doesn't believe Saeed's words about the plane crash, but he convinces the woman that there are many passengers. Russo decides to show Saeed something. Mike showed Jack the blueprint for a makeshift shower, so they could wash himself comfortably. Charlie came running in, saying that Hugo was calling them. It turned out that he had made a golf course. His comrades were unenthusiastic about the idea, for they were busy, but Hugo thought that without entertainment they would all go crazy. Russo showed Saeed a music box that had broken many years ago. It was a gift from her lover Robert. Saeed assured that he could fix it, but he panicked when Russo pulled out a syringe, asking about the inscription on the back of the photo. Despite pleas, Russo injected the captive. Jack, Mike, Charlie, and Hugo decided to play golf after all, soon joined by another man. Saeed woke up in his chair, still not fully recovered from the effects of the sleeping pills. Russo said she was on the island with a group of scientists who had been shipwrecked more than 16 years ago. They lived on the shore for 2 months, and then they came across the others in the jungle, but they were not human beings. Saeed recalls secretly bringing Nadia food. She still refused to give out information. Saeed begged her to cooperate because that was the only way she could be saved. Nadia only told him he was pretending. In reality, he is a good man. Boone invites Shannon and the others to play golf. Sawyer ignores the invitation because he does not like crowds of people. Saeed managed to fix the box after all. Russo was very grateful to him. When Saeed asked permission to leave, Russo said it was dangerous. Suddenly there were eerie noises from outside. The woman grabbed her gun, and Saeed began to remember how the commander had ordered him to execute Nadia. That would serve as a lesson to the others. He recalls coming to Nadia's cell, this time without food. In the present, he stole the map of the island that Russo had made, as well as the shotgun, and hurried to escape from here. A lot of people had already gathered to play golf. Jack confessed to Kate that Hugo's idea of setting up a golf course had been a stroke of genius. People were finally able to relax. Meanwhile, Saeed is making his way through the jungle. He overtook Russo and pointed his gun at her. She did the same. Saeed recalls how the soldiers led Nadia to the execution. When they were left alone, he informed the girl that there was a truck outside the door. She could hide in the back and escape. Nadia signed her picture to him as a keepsake. Suddenly the captain noticed them. Saeed had to shoot him. He also had to wound himself to make the others think it was Nadia who had shot them. The girl did not want to leave Saeed, but was forced to flee. In the present, Saeed realized that the shotgun was not loaded. Russo reported that a long time ago Robert didn't notice it either, and she took his life. She had to do it because he was infected. No one infected could be allowed to get off the island. Russo thinks it is better to die than to see the others. Saeed decided to tell exactly what Nadia had written on the photo. The inscription reads, "We will meet again, if not in this world, then in the next." And for 7 years now, Saeed has clung to the hope that maybe Nadia is still alive. And he wants to survive to find her one day. Saeed asks her to go with him, but she chooses to stay on her own, reminded that this jungle holds terrible secrets. Before parting company with her, Saeed asks who Alex is. Russo replied that Alex was her child. The others continued to play golf. Suddenly Sawyer joined them. At this time Mike came to John because he was lonely. The boy wanted to learn how to throw knives. Saeed, on the other hand, was making his way through the jungle, hearing ominous whispers all around him. At night Claire woke up to the sound of a baby crying. She suddenly realized that her stomach had disappeared. Continuing to hear the baby's crying, Claire went looking for him. In the jungle, she saw John Locke sitting at a table. His eyes were black. Claire kept walking and found a crib with an airplane-shaped rattle hanging over it. Then Claire saw blood in the blankets. It turned out that she was sleepwalking. Charlie calmed Claire, who was hysterical, and then saw blood on her hands. Jack treated her wounds, saying that she had injured her palms with her fingernails. The doctor then asks the girl how she is feeling, and she recalls the day she found out she was pregnant. Her boyfriend, Thomas, is thrown into a panic by the news, but he pulls himself together and assures his beloved that they will get over it. However, Claire does not share his enthusiasm because her mother kicked her out of the house, and Thomas is an unknown artist. They have no means of livelihood, but Thomas assures that everything will be fine. Kate is very worried about Saeed, who has been gone for a week, and Jack is worried that Claire is about to give birth. Meanwhile, Charlie continues to court Claire. He tells the girl that he wants to be a good friend to her and that she can count on him. Claire didn't know how to react, remembering how her friend took her to a psychic, since they are both into astrology. At the seance, the medium came to something horrified, and after returning Claire's money, asked the girls to leave. In the present, Claire awoke to the fact that she had been attacked. Everyone ran to the scream. The girl was very disoriented. Jack tried to calm her down, and later Hugo said that they had combed the entire camp, but had found no one. He suggested that a census be taken, for they know absolutely nothing about each other. Charlie covered Claire with the plaid. She was very frightened, and then Charlie promised that he would not leave her. Hearing those words, Claire recalls how Thomas came home and told her that he had changed his mind about having a baby. He's a creative man, and all this domesticity isn't for him. Claire was shocked, because Thomas himself persuaded her to keep the baby, but he just left. In the afternoon, Hugo started the census, and Jack told Charlie that apparently Claire was having another nightmare. No one had actually attacked her. There's also the risk of premature birth due to stress. Charlie is still convinced that Claire didn't make anything up. Hugo approached Ethan to learn more about him, and Jack decided to talk to Claire and convince her that there really had been no attack. He gave the girl a mild sedative, but she kept insisting that it was real. Claire was determined to return to the beach. Along the way, she recalls returning to that medium, Mr. Malkin. Claire still wanted to know exactly what he had seen in her fate lines back then. The medium had said that it was very important that Claire raise the child alone. If the baby had other parents, he would be in great danger. Claire admitted that she wanted to give the baby up for adoption. Then Mr. Malkin tried to talk her out of doing so. Upset, Claire left. At night Claire received a call. It was Mr. Malkin. He was still hoping to convince Claire not to make a mistake, but she hung up, not wanting to hear anything. In the present, Charlie caught up with Claire, who was upset that no one believed her. Hugo, meanwhile, continues with the census. Shannon and Boone wonder what this is all about. Hugo tells them about the incident in the caves. Boone advises him to get a list of all the passengers on the plane, from which they crossed out the names of the dead when they burned them in the fuselage. Hugo made a request to Sawyer, for he had the list. At that time, Claire went into labor. She told Charlie to go get Jack. He didn't want to leave her alone, but he had no other choice. Claire recalls how the agency found parents for her unborn child. She was given papers to sign. She hesitated for a long time, and the pen wouldn't write. She was given a second, then a third, and then Claire realized it was a sign from above. She went back to the medium for advice. Charlie ran into Ethan and told him to tell Jack what had happened, and he returned to Claire. He held her hand as she recalled how the medium had suddenly changed his mind out of the blue. He had found a family for her baby in America, and in return she would receive $12,000. In the present, Claire wonders how she could have trusted some charlatan. Charlie thinks that maybe he's not a charlatan. After all, he wanted Claire to raise the baby alone, so he convinced her to get on a plane. Claire recalls how the medium had given her tickets for tomorrow's flight. She realized that Mr. Malkin had foreseen the plane crash and deceived her. As Saeed made his way through the jungle, Claire realized that these were false contractions. She was very grateful that Charlie was there for her. Claire also agreed to return to the caves. Meanwhile, the wounded Saeed came running into the camp and told everyone that they were not alone here. And soon a frightened Hugo came and said that one of the survivors was not on the passenger list. At this point, Ethan blocked Charlie and Claire's way. Please don't forget to subscribe to the channel.